on any anti-Semitic activity, and this is largely related to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas that is occurring in the country of Palestine. So I would definitely advise if you are part of that status. And in some regards, even American citizens. Even American citizens, it amazes me how some groups have, even though their population is not as large as other groups, have more backing from the U.S. government, more justice from the U.S. government than other groups with higher percentages of hate crimes. And that brings me to my next segment that I want to break down here. And I'm not gonna try to say too long, but I want to break down some information because I think it's utterly important that we go to the source itself and look at the statistics that they are actually reporting. I want you guys to really see this. Now, the DOJ statements on hate targeting Jewish, Arab, Muslim, and Palestinian communities, they have whole reports just from last month. They actually created task force to combat anti-Semitism, and Justice Department announces formation of formations of task force to combat anti-Semitism. They're creating task force in order to tackle this ongoing problem of anti-Semitism. Okay, so I just want to give you some contrast here. Because what I did was I went and I looked at certain states according to the Department of Justice by the way of the FBI, but I wanted to point out certain states and what are some of the crimes that they're reporting, some of their headline news that they have in some of these states. So California. So I highlighted, now we're going to go over some statistics later, but I wanted to highlight a couple of stories here. I think I just have one for California, and this has to do with race, national origin. It states here that a California man was charged with hate crimes for punching an Asian American woman in Culver City while yelling racial slurs at her. So if you go down here, they highlight some stories dating back, 4 or 5 years or so, and what was the cause of it, national origin, race, sexual orientation, sexual identity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So again, there's a high population of Asians in California. So again, majority of crimes that may be committed against the Asian community, most happily with states that are populated with the most Asians. So in regards of statistics, that makes sense to me. Now let's go to Texas. Now, if anyone are familiar with the certain demographics of Texas, of course, you have Caucasians, you have Blacks, you have Asians, and you have Hispanics. Now, believe it or not, the largest population of Black people is actually in Texas. I don't know if you guys were familiar there, but the highest population of Black people actually are in Texas. They have a high population of Asians. They have a high population of Indian as well. But I just highlighted a couple of stories here as well. A Texas man has been charged with a federal hate crime for making threats against the employees of a Zeke nonprofit organization. Now, if you guys are not familiar with Zeke, it is a religion in the Punjabi when it comes to Indian people from the country of India. Also, a Texas man was sentenced to more than 2 years in prison for sending a series of anti-Semitic death threats, and that was targeting Jewish people, okay? Last, a Texas man was sentenced to 90 consecutive life sentencing in prison for carrying out a mass shooting at a Vista Walmart in El Paso, Texas. It states that the defendant wrote a manifesto and uploaded it to social media minutes before he launched his attack. He characterized himself as a white nationalist motivated to kill Hispanics because they were immigrating to the United States of America. This is Florida. It states here that a Florida man was sentenced to 5 years in prison for racially motivated attacks on 2 Black women. He used racial slurs, told her that she could not sit there, and threatened to kill her. Then he retrieved his shotgun and fired a single shot. Also, a Florida man pleaded guilty to assaulting a postal worker wearing a hijab. This is most likely religion and national origin. Seems as though she might be Muslim. but he called the victim the B word and said, if I had a gun and go back, if I had a gun and go back to your country. When the victim got back in her vehicle, the defendant climbed into the vehicle, attacking her, spitting on her, and removing her hijab. Feeling trapped, the victim got out of her mail truck, but the defendant followed her, continued to physically harass her, and yell, "Effing Islam, you are a terrorist." A Florida man was sentenced to 6 months in prison for leaving threatening messages at a Jewish organization. A Florida man charged by a grand jury for repeatedly threatening the Council on American Islamic Relations. A Florida man sentenced to a year and a day in prison and 2 years of supervised release for a bias motivated attack on 6 black men. Now, according to the evidence, in September of 2022, the defendant drove his truck towards the group of 6 black men because of their race. The men were surveying land along a public road near the location of the 1923 Rosewood Massacre when the attack took place. The defendant shouted racial slurs at the victims while almost hitting them with his truck. So as we're looking and breaking down a lot of these race relations in America, I'm pointing out a couple of key states. I'm not going to go through all 50 of them. This is Massachusetts. Okay, this is Massachusetts. They have a plethora of different stories of things that have occurred around the nation. But I wanted to point out certain states and some of the atrocities that are happening in America and who are the suspects, who are the perpetrators. Tennessee, the home and birthplace of the KKK. Let's see some stories here. I don't believe I highlighted any. But again, Tennessee man pleads guilty to federal hate crime, civil rights violation of series of church arsons. And we know those churches were black churches and synagogues. FBI, Memphis, and U.S. Attorney Office or Western District of Tennessee urged the public to report hate crimes. More church arsons, U.S. Attorney for Western District. Okay, they're just kind of repeating the stories there. But they have ongoing attacks against certain communities. Now, what's imperative about this is the face of the legacy and mass media have pointed people that look like me as the perpetrators and suspects of a lot of these anti-Semitic crimes, anti-Asian crimes, anti-Muslim crimes. They have shown that black folk are the perpetrators and suspects of such crimes. Facts and statistics. When you come to the facts and statistics page, they kind of just give you a couple of round up percentages. They really doesn't point out any particular group of people that are committing these crimes when you go to the justice.gov and you go to the hate crime statistics. They just kind of show you from year to year of the reported crimes, the known offenders, victims versus this and that. It really doesn't give you anything, but they basically are stating that majority of the crime in America is contributed to race, ethnicity, and your ancestry. That over 50% of the crimes in America, over 50% of the hate crimes in America are based upon your race, while 22% is your religion and 18.4% is your sexual orientation. But if we dive a little bit deeper and we go to the FBI Crime Data Explorer, we started to see the statistics broken up into certain categories like bias types. So as soon as you come to this page, you see the categories here. You see anti-American Indian or Alaskan Native at 540. And these are simple numbers, that is, not percentages. But you see the highest number here is anti-Asian. And you will automatically believe that the majority of the bias and hate crimes when it comes to race, okay, when it comes to race, is done upon the Asian community. That includes Indian folk as well. And I don't mean Native Americans, I mean people who are from India. You will automatically think that the majority of hate crime are committed against the Asian community. In the Asian community is only 7 to 9% of the U.S. population. And when you come down here, hate crime in the United States by bias, you see the majority of it is aggravated assault. We drill down just a little bit further. It says, who are the offenders? And you see the majority here says Black or African American at 7,670. You go over to the offender ethnicity. It says that not Hispanic or Latino at 13,773. So automatically you're thinking that 7,000 number has to be part of that 13,000 number. Well, why do they separate it and not just add that number into the offenders of race when it comes to Black Americans? Well, you have to do a little more digging right here on this particular site. I'm not going anywhere. I'm just flipping the script here. So I drilled down a little bit further to get more information. Now we have the actual numbers. Anti-Black, anti-Jewish, anti-gay, anti-white, and anti-Hispanic. If you notice, the original number for Asian was 2,091, 2016. So they're not even in the highest number when you drill down within the categories. Majority of the hate crimes in America are committed against Black Americans. They're more than doubling each and every other group. But if you didn't drill down and do proper research, you would just believe that majority of the hate crimes are committed against Asian Americans. That is not the truth. Majority of hate crimes in America are committed against Black Americans, double, almost triple more so, or triple rather, than Jewish folk, as well as people who are part of the LGBT community, people who are Caucasian, and people who are Hispanic or Latino. Let's drill down a bit further. We come out to the offender's race. Majority of the offenders of hate crimes in America are white. It more than quadruple that, well, not quadruple, it triples that of Black Americans. And we come over to his not Hispanic or Latino, you still have that 13,773 number. So I want to do a more detailed list of crimes in America and those offenders of those crimes, because again, people that look like me are the face of crime in America. Even though that the FBI is reporting that majority of the hate crimes in America are committed by Caucasian Americans. And again, it's only have 20,000. I'm not stating that all Caucasian Americans, all white Americans are committing crimes. I'm not stating that at all, because, if you don't say it, people automatically think he's talking about all white people. No, I'm not. Okay, there's good white people and there's good Black people, good Asian people, good everybody. But there are some perpetrators and suspects that the media has for a very long time has put this face on the screen of a very small percentage of Black Americans that is committing 90% of the crimes. They will have you to believe that majority of Black Americans are committing 90% of the crimes, but that is not the statistics. You can go on social media and look at all the crime, all the assaults that's committed about every and each group. But in order to really find the suspects and perpetrators, you have to look at the statistics and things that are being reported. And I know some people are going to say, well, those numbers can be fudged. I know what I see. You know what you are shown. You know what they want you to see. But again, because social media and media is so vast, because everybody has a cell phone, everybody has a social media account, now the table is turning. But these statistics have always been here. So again, let's look at some of the crime data here. And on your left, you see the race, and on the right, you see the percent of the distribution of who is committing such crimes. Now, when it says murder and non-negligent manslaughter, you see Black Americans at 51.2%. Now, manslaughter could just be someone got into a fight, bumped their head, and they died. Or it could just be gang violence. It can be a sense of all these different attributes that are contributed to people getting murdered, people getting killed, and manslaughter as well. So again, I'm just going to look down the numbers of percentages. Of course, on the left, you see race and the simple numbers. You see white, black, American, Indian, Alaskan Native, Asian, and Pacific Islanders. So when it comes to rate, Caucasians outnumber every other group. When it comes to robbery, Black Americans outnumber each and every group. And when I thought about the robbery sense of this, I would like to believe that the demographic of people who are the poorest in the nation possibly have the highest crime rate when it comes to robbery, because you take what you don't have. And I'm not giving just cause for crime. This should not be the occurrence. This should not be the end all be all of why people commit crimes. But we understand that homelessness, the lack of resources and opportunity does lead to crime. It's just an indicator. It's just one of those things that we know to be true, that if you don't have the opportunity to make your own money and to provide for your family, you will go out and get it out the mud, however that may be. Let me move on. Aggravated assault, mostly committed by white Americans. Burglary, mostly committed by white Americans. Larceny theft, white Americans. Motor theft, white Americans. Arson, white Americans. Violent crime, white Americans. And again, we look at the percentage over here on the right column, 59%. So 60% of violent crimes in America are committed by white Americans. Property crime, white Americans. Almost 30% of property crime. And I want you guys to keep this 30% in your mind, because we're going to get into property crime a little bit later here, okay? And they have Black Americans at only 2%. Other assaults, 455,000, almost 456,000, white Americans. Forgery and counterfeiting, white Americans. Fraud, white Americans. Embezzlement, white Americans. Stolen property, buying, receiving, possession, white Americans. Vandalism, white Americans. Weapons carrying possession, white Americans. Prostitution and commercialized vice, white Americans. Okay, let's see. Drug abuse and violation. Drug abuse and violation, white Americans. What about all those Black people smoking weed and crack? White Americans. Driving under the influence, white Americans. Liquor laws, white Americans. Drunkenness, white Americans. Disorderly conduct, white Americans. Vagrancy, white Americans. Disorderly conduct, they say. I don't see any white folk committing disorderly conduct in public. I haven't seen any fist fights, any rowdy people in the streets doing anything of the sort.
Hey, stop that! Hey!
No, this is super inappropriate. No. Dude, stop. Dude, stop. Stop. You need to stop.
You fucking hit me first.
Okay, you should not be hitting, sir. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. I was coming around the corner. But he was being rude to you, and I understand you're upset too.
You're on me, motherfucker.
Let him go. Let him go.
Let go of your grip.
Let him go. Let him
Let
go.
go of your grip.
Olivia, Mima, we have to go. This has gotten to a crazy level of dysfunction.
Please let go of me, sir. You're gonna get off me and let me get up.
So again, of course, this is a very small example, but I know you guys are tired of the narrative of Black on Black crime. I know that you guys are tired of the narrative of Black on Black crime, where the statistics that's by this government is literally pointing out percentages and simple numbers of who is committing the most crimes in America. Now, I'm gonna go back up to one statistics, because this is, a very detailed, itemized list. But I want to go back to violent crime. Okay, we can go to drug abuse, but I want to look for the one that has violent crime. Give me 1 second. Violent crime, because that's the one that most people, that's kind of one of those key words. And violent crime is right here. I'm just going to point out these two here. Okay, violent crime. They double that of Black Americans. They almost double that of Black Americans, rather. But why is this? Because the numbers that they show us, the display and the depiction that they show us on mass media, and it really doesn't matter whether it's liberal media or conservative media, they always point to black people are the problem. Certain racial pundits like your Nick Fuentes will point out that black people are the problem. So you're telling me that black people are the problem for white people committing crimes against, from white people committing crimes against every other community. That's what you're telling me. So when I see people point to black people as a problem, even your Jason Whitlocks, who are your tokens, even Jason Whitlock would tell you, oh, it's the black American culture. It's the mother and father not being in the home, where this government are reporting against themselves and letting the American people know who are the suspects and who are the perpetrators. Who are the people who are committing these hate crimes? Who are the people who are committing these violent crimes? But the American people, now, if I'm Caucasian and I'm biased, then like, oh, they're fudging the numbers, and that's why President Trump is in office, and we're gonna get this DEI out of our reporting statistics. And if I'm Caucasian and I'm neutral, and I didn't know this, and maybe I'm the wrong face to report it, I'm gonna go do my research. And I'm gonna get maybe 2 other sources to verify that what this guy on the internet is saying is true. Instead of just believing what Fox News, CSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC are stating, or what your local news is even reporting. Because this is what's happening in America. But they would like you to believe that people like me, people that look like me, are committing all the crimes. Yeah, they'll show us Shaniqua dancing on a police car, acting rowdy, acting wild, but they won't tell you that, oh, this girl is not Shaniqua. This girl is actually from the Caribbean. This girl is actually from Africa. She's not Black American. Her ancestry doesn't date back to 1526, let alone even 1619, that these people have a different culture. Black Americans have a very rich culture. And I've broken this down many times before, but they don't want to show you that. They just want to show you a black face committing crime. So you can say they are the problem. So the white nationalists who are racist, they can say they're the problem. Oh, you know what? Now it's the Hispanics. Now it's these folks. But the statistics just are blurring to me of who are the group who are receiving the most hate and who are the offenders who are committing the most hate. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I don't know why they don't point these things out. I don't know why they do not point these things out. I have no idea.
Yep.
I can't.
Are you done? Are we gonna go again?
Somewhere
Let go
else.
of you.
What, are we done or are you gonna go again?
I physically can't let go.
Are we done or are you gonna go again? Get off me.
Mom, this is
Ah!
crazy. Hey guys,
the fuck
stop.
off
There's
me,
a
dude.
senior citizen walking through. Please
Off.
stop.
You started that bullshit.
Stop, dude.
You started that fucking bullshit, asshole.
Mom, go.
You better back off me, motherfucker.
You're literally still holding on.
Get off me. Get away from me.
Again, that's a very small example of violence in America. Of course, we can show videos from every group of people, every demographic, of them in public assaulting one another. But again, the statistics do not lie. The statistics do not lie.